And Ariel, I will stop sharing. There we go. And Ariel, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I just want to say before I start the presentation, you might hear some background noise. I live right on a highway, and unfortunately, the library is closed today due to maintenance issues, so wasn't able to get a room there. So I apologize in advance. Let me just pull everything up. Okay. So hello everyone, my name is Ariel Turrigiano. I'm the public librarian over at Blank Library, and today your teacher has asked me to come in and discuss with all of you as high school students going into college soon, one important step that you must avoid if you do not want to be expelled. So we're going to start something off. We're going to start this off with a simple exercise. Using your annotation tool, I'd like you to review this example and either put a check if this is considered plagiarism or an X if you don't consider it plagiarism. Okay, so it looks like everyone's in agreement that this is considered plagiarism, and that is correct. This is an example of direct plagiarism where the taken text is not put into quotations, nor is the author cited at all. Okay, so I'm just gonna clear that. Okay. Okay, now if everyone can take a look at this example, if you could do the same thing, review and put a check or an X, depending on whether you believe this is plagiarism or not. Okay, so seeing everybody's given the yes, it is plagiarism, and this is considered a form of mosaic plagiarism, which we'll go over, but since there is no indication that this information was taken from a different source and it has not been cited, this is in fact a form of plagiarism. Okay, so today's objectives is we're going to be defining plagiarism, the consequences of plagiarism in college, the four main types of plagiarism, or in this case, the most common types of plagiarism, and a few tips on how to avoid plagiarism. So what is plagiarism? The Oxford Dictionary defines plagiarism as the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and then passing them off as one's own. And the consequences of plagiarism are very different in college than they would be in your current situation in high school. Normally, you will fail the assignment. Most likely, you will fail the course. In most cases, you could get academic suspension, and depending on the school's code of conduct, you could be expelled even for only one case of plagiarism. The type of punishment that you will get can also very much depend on how the professor of the course wants it to be dealt with. A teacher who takes plagiarism very seriously, they have a very high say in what your punishment will be. But sometimes you can have a more lenient professor, especially if you accidentally plagiarize, and we'll discuss that later on, who can try to make your punishment not as severe. So the four most common types of plagiarism are direct plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism, self-plagiarism, and accidental plagiarism. Direct plagiarism is the most recognizable form of plagiarism, and it happens when you take text directly from another writer. By not placing the text in quotations or properly citing the author, you are directly plagiarizing the source. If you copy and paste from an online source or type an exact passage from a book, you've committed plagiarism if you don't cite it. Many educators consider this type of plagiarism to be one of the most severe because it shows the student was deliberately attempting to pass someone's work off as their own. The example from the beginning of the lesson was a form of direct plagiarism because the student didn't place the text in quotations and they didn't provide a citation. In this way, the student had fully intended to pass the work off as their own. Mosaic plagiarism occurs when you use a majority of the author's original writing, but replace some of the words or phrases with your own writing. One way you could do this is to substitute a few words in the sentence with a synonym or rearrange the original sentence structure. When you do this, plagiarism occurs because you've attempted to pass off the author's original work as your own by trying to disguise the original work. This can also often happen when a student attempts to paraphrase a work correctly, and it will be viewed as a form of mosaic plagiarism, even if you didn't intend to do so. To avoid doing this, it's important to properly paraphrase your source or directly quote it. Um, when you think back to the second example at the beginning of the lesson, the student writer had borrowed a large majority of the source's words and provided only slight variations compared to the original. Because the student's work contained keywords and full phrases from the original source, the student's work cannot be considered as a paraphrase. You have to keep in mind that when you are paraphrasing a work, that means you have complete understanding of the original source, and you're showing this knowledge by presenting it in your own words. Even then, you must include a proper citation either within the text of the paper or at the end of the paragraph that the paraphrase takes place. You also need to include the source in your reference section. Self-plagiarism is a little tricky and it's not something you would often think of, but it occurs when you reuse your own work without crediting it. And I know that sounds a little strange. For example, if you were to write a paper for one class and it fit the guidelines or project for another class and you were to turn it in without getting permission from both professors, that will be considered plagiarism. If you were using parts of your previous paper in a new paper and turning that in without citing yourself, that's considered plagiarism. It can also occur when you combine several pieces of writing that you've previously done to create a completely new paper. You should take notice that even in academic literature, which you will be going through and researching in college, you will notice that authors, even when they're referring to their own previous works, still properly cite and reference it in the papers. Accidental plagiarism occurs when a person neglects to cite the source correctly, misquotes their source, or unintentionally paraphrases a source by using similar words, groups of words, or sentence structure without citing the source, which is what we were discussing with mosaic plagiarism. Even though it is accidental and you didn't intend to plagiarize, it's still seen as a very serious offense, and you will still be subject to the consequences of plagiarism. So I have an example here of direct plagiarism. And on the next slide, I'd like you to use the annotation tool for text to type in how this student avoided direct plagiarism. So I'll give you a few moments just to look at the source material and the student's version. And now if you could please write, how did the student avoid plagiarizing? Okay, someone said they needed to see the slide again, so I will just go. Okay, so all of your answers are correct. They did cite the source correctly. As you can see here in the example, they cited the source correctly by putting the proper citation in the beginning of the sentence. And because it is a direct quote, they placed it in quotations marks, placed the page number that they took it from, and in the reference section, they correctly listed the source. Okay, so here's an example of how to avoid mosaic plagiarism. Everyone take a few moments to look at this, the original source and the student's version, and then describe on the next slide how the student avoided plagiarism. Okay, everybody all set? Okay, so how did the student avoid plagiarism? Okay, so it looks like everyone is in agreement. So the student had properly paraphrased the work by using her own words and showing that she did in fact understand the source material and has properly explained it in her own words. And she also cited the source correctly by putting at the end of the sentence the author, and she had also placed the proper citation in her references section. Okay, so and now that we've gone over the few main ways of plagiarism and ways to avoid them, I'll also give you a few tips on how to avoid plagiarism. One of the main ways to avoid plagiarism is to not procrastinate once you get an assignment. Start researching and outlining your paper early. When students mismanage their time and they see the deadline approaching, they believe that plagiarism can be the only viable answer. But if you give yourself enough time to work through your assignment, then that stress won't be a factor and you'll be less tempted to cheat. Another great tip is to write in a clean room, similar to a clean room in a hospital. Clean room means that all of your writing for the final document should be separate from any of your notes and sources. You shouldn't paste any content into your final assignment that you are not going to immediately quote and cite. Never mingle your writing with your notes and keep your own words separate from what others have written. This helps you not only to paraphrase properly, but so that you don't also leave any kind of uncited passage in there that could constitute as accidental plagiarism. Next is to cite as you write. A lot of students decide that they just want to add their citations at the end once they're finished writing, but this is just asking for trouble. A good rule of thumb is to always add a citation right after you finished inserting a quote or finished up a paraphrase in your work. By not doing so, you're running the risk of missing citations and having to explain why there's an uncited passage in your paper. And then finally, and this is one of the most important, is just ask for help. If there's any point during your writing when you're wondering whether or not it should be cited, ask your professor. Unlike a writing center assistant or your friend proofreading, your professor is the one who makes the ultimate decision on what does and does not constitute as plagiarism for this paper. So their input should be the one that you value above everybody else's. It's also good to speak with your professor about these kinds of issues you're having in advance before handing the paper in, so that way, in case there is an event of accidental plagiarism, the professor is much more likely to believe you when you say it was unintentional on your part, as opposed to if you had never asked at all. It's a way to show good faith between you and your professor. Okay, so let's review what we've learned. We've learned the definition of plagiarism, which in its base form to is to take someone's work and try to pass it off as your own without giving credit. The consequences of plagiarism, which is ultimately expulsion if you do it even just one time, depending on the severity of it and the severity of the school's code of conduct. The four common types of plagiarism, which are direct, mosaic, self and accidental, and a few tips on how to avoid plagiarism. I've listed here a couple of other useful resources, such as the Indiana University Plagiarism website. This is a great website that you can go on. It goes through full lessons in depth on all different types of plagiarism, examples and quizzes on how to avoid it. So it's a really great learning tool. And if you want, you can even try to get a certification class that they do offer free online. You can go to plagiarism.org, which offers numerous articles on different types of plagiarism, how to avoid it, and so many great resources. You can also go to our website, blanklibrary.org, under information literacy resources. We have plenty of tutorials, including an instructional screencast of this lesson we just went over, so you can review it at your leisure, take notes. And if you have any kinds of questions at all, you can contact me at the email address listed below, my phone number, or you can just visit me between the hours of 10 to 5 at Blank Library. I will most certainly be there. So I'm going to open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions or something they'd like to go over?
When you said there was a like a course you could take for certification, what does that mean?
It's an interesting thing. It's a certification course that Indiana University uses to show that you went through all the tests and certifications that they offer to show that you did complete the plagiarism course. Sometimes your professor might ask you to complete a course like that to show that you have a full understanding of what plagiarism is. And it's also just an interesting tool to use for yourself. Does anybody else have some questions? Anne, do you have a question or? Oh, okay. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for watching. If you have any questions or if you would like to make any comments on how to better work this tutorial or lesson, please let me know. Even though I am a full-grown librarian with a full-time job, I'm also always learning, just as you are, and feedback like yours is crucial to improving my work as well. So I hope everyone else has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. That was a great presentation and on a very important topic. Excuse me. That is so important, and I think it's great that you aimed it at high schoolers so that this is stuff that they can learn before they get to college. So
Yeah,
I
because
think that was great.
I can tell you right now, I was not taught much about plagiarism besides don't copy and paste.
Yeah.
Uh, Okay, so do I put the hosting privileges back to you, or?
Nope, you are good. Let's see who is, oops. So next is Jeff.
Yep. Can everyone see what's on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Looks good.
Great. Okay. Welcome, everyone. And just to begin, my name is Jeff Bendetti Coomber. I was set to present on the 24th, and our first child, my little daughter Abigail, decided to come on the 23rd. So we've been kind of had to move everything around and present today, but I'm excited to be with all of you. And let's get started. So creating and editing a drop-down menu is what we're going to be discussing today. Once again, my name is Jeff Bendetti Coomber. The background of this project, I wanted to give a little background because it was important to see where the intended audience. I know some of you have already mentioned what audience it's intended for, but excuse me, sorry, I'm running on very little sleep. Okay, I took Information 280 this semester. Part of that class was creating a website. And to do this, we were going to do it on WordPress. Now, I'd used WordPress for Information 200, but I used it as a blog and never as a website, and Professor Main had very specific directions. She provided a tutorial, but I found it pretty difficult to follow along, understand. I actually had to go to outside resources. I Googled, I did YouTube, and I kind of looked around to see what I could find. And so I piecemealed it together and figured out this is how I create things like a drop-down menu, which was one of the key components. Because of this experience, I thought, hey, for my lesson, I think it'd be fun to create something that others could use if they ever take Info 280, or just, if there's a focus on findability, usability. Many of you work in libraries or other information professions or wish to get into those. These are two essential, I think, concepts related to information and being able to find it. And having a good website. So I will define these here in a little bit. Let's move on to the objectives. So in this lesson, you will be able to define findability and usability, explain the importance of findability and usability in a website, create a drop-down menu on WordPress, organize that menu, and add extra subtabs if needed. And what the extra subtabs mean is if you have a lot of information on your site or something like that, and you really need to define where things are, I think it's really helpful to show you that step as well. So this is what we'll be covering. Are there any questions about the objectives? Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to start off with a quick discussion. If you could please enter your answers into the chat. Sometimes when we all get on the microphones, it can be a little difficult, so feel free to chat in your answers here. My questions to you guys are, how important is it to find information quickly and easily on a website? And what happens if you don't find the information easily? So as Peter starts us off, very important, and it's frustrating. Exactly, I'm seeing a lot of frustration on the chat, and I agree. For me, it's always frustrating when I'm looking for a site, even if it's something like a takeout restaurant or a place I want to go, it doesn't have a phone number, it doesn't have hours. Of course, there are exceptions. Like right now, I'm doing a paper on the history of the Boston Athenaeum. So there, I'm spending a lot of time on their website digging through everything. But in general, anymore in our day and age, you want to get things quickly. Yeah, exactly, Molly. You give up. Perfect. Very frustrating. You give up. And I think, especially with libraries, our whole point is to help people find information. If you're in this 280 class, the whole point is your professor wants to find this information to give you a good grade. If it's too confusing, you're not going to get the grade that you desire. So, this is definitely a focal point for us as students in the San Jose State program, and I think beyond that into the information profession in general. Now, this is just some definitions of findability and usability, as I mentioned early on in the background. You don't have to copy down these definitions. If you do wish to do that, maybe put it in your own words. Findability, of course, is the quality of finding something. In the case of most websites, it's how quickly and easily can you find that information. And then usability, how easily can you use it? Is there information you can use on that site? Is it not just, you may be able to find things easily, but are they what you're really looking for, if that makes sense? Both of these terms apply to any site, as I said, you run into, and they're both very important in my view. And because of that, I've got some fun examples I want us to go through. So I have here an example, and we're going to look at both of these, of what I think is a website with good findability, Cal State Northridge's Oviatt Library website, and poor findability, which is the Yale University School of Art website. And if you've never seen it before, you're in for a treat. Remind me at the end. I will paste the links to these if you want to explore them more on your own. I think they're both worth a look, especially after this lesson. And let me just check in. Can everyone see that I've switched from my PowerPoint to the Oviatt website? Beautiful. Okay. So here's what I view as a website with good findability, good usability. The Oviatt Library is the close CSU library to where I live in Northridge. And you can tell up here they have main tabs with drop-down menus for many of the features that users would look for here at the library. There are also quick links that probably the links that the students use the most are listed here. So instead of having to even just do this step, they can just come down here and go to databases. For example, it takes you there. Obviously, you can still get there by going find resources and databases. Takes you to the same place, but it's just a faster option. I would state I personally kind of find this too busy. There is a lot going on, at least to me visually, but I still think you can find what you're looking for fairly easily. I also think it's clear that the Oviatt has their student base in mind. If you know CSUN, you know most of their students are undergraduates. So you have a lot of research, and other, like students are learning research methods. They're working with the librarians kind of more closely with citations and things like that. And I think even just having research assistants right up here at the top is great for those students, and is really helpful. So they really know their audience, which helps too. Not to say Yale doesn't, and we'll take a look at Yale here in a second. Does anyone have any questions, comments about CSUN? Does anyone like Jeff's nuts? This is not an easy website. This is bad. This is bad findability. Okay. Perfect. So let's check out Yale. And I warn you, if any of you have trouble with websites that have like flashing images or things, I'm sorry in advance. So this is Yale School of Art's website. It is unique in the sense it has student input every semester, so the students add certain things. I came across this my first semester when I was taking Information 202, and we had to find a terrible website and like recreate it. And this was the one I chose, and it's gotten better since I did that project, but it's still pretty bad. So as you can see, everything from the title right here is, blending into the background. You have all the links here on the side, but no drop-down menu. They're all just kind of listed. One of my favorite links here is just titled Everything Else. Now think about that. You come look, let's look what's on everything else. It's brochures. Why it's titled Everything Else, I do not know. I would say this See Also bar down here has more links that are important, which again, I don't know why they can't put on the main link page, but this box also pops up on every page. So it's not just everything else includes brochures and See Also, it's just the brochures. And I think if you were actually looking for the brochures, this is the last tab I'd click on. I don't know about all of you, but this is a very interesting site. And again, it may meet the needs of its users. If you look at the Yale art students, maybe this is what they need and want. And of course, if you're using this website day in and day out, you might have more you'll be more familiar. It might be easier to use. I personally, as a visitor, find it pretty bad every time. So, and here's probably my least favorite. Sorry in advance if it's, yeah, um, exactly. Tiny print, hard to read. And this is better is what I mean, Nancy, excuse me, I'm just seeing that now. If you look at the financial aid and the scholarship writing here, there was no background. So there was no solid background. It was just on the images, like the name up here. So that's what I mean by better. It's still terrible. It's still really bad. Yeah, I'm gonna take us back to the home page and back to where we're at. Yeah, but you see what I'm talking about when it comes to findability, usability. You have one that I think is very easy to find what you're looking for, and one that I'm like, unless I'm looking at it every day, boy, this is confusing. And so my goal with showing you how to create a drop-down menu is to avoid those, kind of pitfalls and problems, especially whether it's 280 or creating a website on your own. So let's just, okay. We'll make a drop-down menu. We'll go, and for this, sorry. Okay, so for this project, I'm going to show you how to create a drop-down menu with kind of a partial website I created, and I'll show you the finished project at the end. This is for a manuscript and book project I had for my history of books and libraries. As you can see right now, all of the tabs are listed right here. And it's not too busy at the moment. You can tell where things are. Obviously, the order's a little weird, but it's alphabetical. That's why gallery is first. But it's okay until you look and see a printed book study is going to be added. And that means more tabs are going to be added up here. And I think that's just too much. So how do we fix this problem? We add a drop-down menu and kind of synthesize the other information, make it easy to find what you're looking for. To do this, we're going to go up and hover over the title of our website. We're going to come down here to menus and click on it. If you happen to click on any of the others, don't worry, they'll all take you to this page. You can also get here by clicking on appearance and then on menus. And I'll show you that later. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a menu. First, we'll title it main menu. Just know that this menu name does not show up on your website. It's just for this construction here. So we're going to hit create menu. Now we know a menu has been created because now instead of create, it says save, and there's blue buttons to save at the top and bottom. I'm not sure if it has to be installed on our toolbar. Sorry, I'm just answering a quick question here. Let me get back to you on that. I do not believe so. I think it should be there already, built in. Okay, so we've created a menu. We have ability to save the menu. And one thing I want to mention here, this little box is very important. It's called primary navigation. Now, if you don't have this box clicked, any changes you make will not show up on your website. So you want to make sure it's clicked and it's constantly saved. WordPress is pretty good about letting you know if you haven't saved and says, hey, stop, you need to save before you leave this page. But it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so we have our menu here, and of course it follows the structure you saw on that page. We have all of the pages listed alphabetically, and they're all independent. So how we're going to do this is we're going to select one I feel that encapsulates all of these, like the heading for all of these, what these would all fit under. I think manuscript project is a good one. We're going to drag that up under home, so that's aligned. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on each one, drag to the right. You'll see a sub item and it'll be indented. And that's what we want, because once that happens, all of these will be the drop-down menu for manuscript project. So we'll save, go up to our site. Okay, and now here we are. So manuscript project, we have gallery, manuscript background, all the links are there. It's a lot cleaner, and I said when we add the printed book project, we'll have that right next to it. Two quick things. If you want, obviously the order isn't correct here, so let me quickly show you how to get that fixed. I'm going to click on just on dashboard instead of menus just to show you the other way to get here. So here I'm just at the regular dashboard. I go again to appearance. I click on menus, and I'm back. So, all right. And thank you all for the kind words about being user-friendly. I appreciate that, because again, this is something that I struggled with, so I was hoping to make something easy for people to use. So now to reorder this, all you do is you just drag and drop. So in this case, manuscript background would go first, then I'd like physical description, and whatever order you'd like. It really doesn't, it's up to you, it's up to your website. And we'll save. And once again, you'll see as we go back, it's all now the order we wanted in for users to find it, because that's important too. If you start with something like gallery, users may be looking for a quick, like the most important thing. In this case, I think the background was what she really wanted to look at first. Professor Main did. And so that's why the order can really make a difference. One last thing I want to show all of you, and this doesn't apply to my site that I'm showing you, but if you had one like the Oviet, where you have a lot of different pieces of information, you really needed to make sure users could find what they're looking for, you can add further subtabs. What you do here is you can drag and drop and then to wherever you want. In this case, I'm not going to need to move it, but you just move it one more to the right. So now you see these are all indented from manuscript project, and script is indented from physical description. So let's see how that looks. Okay. So now you can see physical description disappeared. Oh, but there it is now as an extra link. As I said, I think for like this type of website, it's very frivolous and honestly can be more distracting in some cases. One of the other students did a great job, but all of their, all of these links had like 5 extra links shooting out, and it was very kind of exhausting to go through them all. So again, think of your audience, think of what's easiest for use. Is there any questions about the process? Does anyone need to see it again? Again, you'd just be going to the editing phase, dragging and dropping. This is the finished product I had for my particular site. As you can see, it looks almost identical. It just has the printed book project added. You'll also notice some of these tabs are the same. That's why it's important to have a drop-down menu too, because in this case, I had a gallery for printed books. I had a gallery for manuscript project, physical description for both. And so if I didn't have that, you know, your professor, whoever's looking at your website is just guessing, you know, they're like, well, it says gallery, hopefully it's the right one, which you don't want. You want it to be findable, you want it to be easy to use, all those things. Okay. So now that we've made our drop-down menu, organized it, all that fun stuff, let's quickly review. Findability and usability are very important. You know, I think design is important too, but these are what really stand out to me as key concepts when creating your website, whether it's for Information 280, whether it's for your library, whether it's for a personal website or blog. You know, you want people to find that information they're seeking. Drop-down menus, I think, are a great way to help with that, especially for a project like this, where the professor clearly wanted it. It was helpful for her to find the information. So it's a good option to have. Just remember to go to the menus page. You'll create your own menu. You just click and drag pages, play around with it. You know, it's just kind of something that you'll get the hang of the more you use it, the more you play around with it. You'll pull pages to the right for subtabs. Again, if you just want to click and drag to the right, that will be a subtab under the heading, and you can move those around however you wish. I did a pretty simple one, but there's far more complex ones. And then you pull the right again for an extra subtab. Again, if you had a large website with a lot of information, I think that's necessary. For something like this, it's a little frivolous. Remember to have the primary navigation checked. Very important. If you do not, again, I didn't give the example, but nothing will show up. And it was very frustrating for me for like couple hours, and I was like, why is nothing showing up, and racking my brain. And then I finally checked it and I was like, oh, now everything's appearing like it should. Finally, save early and often. I can't stress this enough. You don't want to make all these changes and then have it all disappear because you forgot to save. Okay, we're going to do contact, and I'm going to have a quick assessment for all of you. And here's your reward. This is my little daughter Abigail doing her best Michael Jordan impression. She is doing very well and is definitely the center of my world right now. But if you have any further questions, concerns, or like, gosh, she should never present again because this was bad, feel free to email me at jbcoomber12.com. Thank you all very much. And I'm going to put up an assessment now, just kind of how I did, how you feel about doing this kind of process yourself. I would just tell you that if I were working with the professor or a professor on this, I think what I'd want to do is have students send me links to their website so I could check that they actually created the drop-down menu, be more involved in the assessment. This is not going to be that. Do not worry. This isn't going to follow you anywhere. So I'm going to relaunch this poll, and feel free. Is that showing up for everyone? And again, this assessment is helpful for me and you because, as I said, this way I can tell next time when I teach it what I should change, what I should not change. And again, I think it's, it's something I'm in low sleep. So I'm sorry. It's been very choppy presenting today. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the feedback. It looks like the poll ended. So I will stop my sharing and give the floor back to Nancy. And sorry, are there any other questions? Or any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. That was a great presentation. My eyes are still burning from that Yale website.
I'm sorry, but it's just it was too good to pass up. It's just so bad. It's just so bad. And, I was like, oh God, I'm going to have someone that has seizures or something watch it. I'm going to cause something bad, but hopefully you all, got something out of this. So thank you.
Hey, Nancy, I had a question.
Yes.
When the poll popped up, I couldn't vote. I mean, I could see results, but there wasn't aerial buttons or
I
check
think
boxes.
I think that's because you guys are co-hosts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I know
I
for
just
next time
wasn't
if I ever do one. Oh,
But it was
sorry,
great.
everyone.
Is it okay if we take a quick 2-minute bathroom break before I start?
Absolutely.
Too much coffee this morning.
No problem.
Thank you.
So we'll start up again at 10 minutes to the hour.
Okay, thank you.
And then I will make you the host.
Perfect. Thank you.
And whenever you are ready.
Okay, can everybody see my slide there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, hello and welcome to the library's program for parents and caregivers, Reading Aloud, It's Not Just for Bedtime. My name is Carrie Kitzmiller, and I am one of the librarians here at the Public Library. And I'm sure most of us have memories of being read aloud to as a child, and some of us may have memories of reading aloud to our own children. One of my fondest memories of when my kids were little is curling up on the couch with a huge stack of picture books and reading for a long time. And it was just one of the favorite things that I did with my kids when they were little. Do you have any specific books that are stuck in your mind that you remember being read aloud to you, or books you remember reading aloud to your kids? If you want to share those in the chat, that would be great. Monster at the end of this book. I remember reading that to my kids. Yes, Goodnight Moon, Trumpeter Swan, Babar, Winnie the Pooh. Yes, all great books. I have a lot of memories of being read aloud to in school, but not a lot of memories of being read aloud to by my parents, because I learned to read before I even entered kindergarten. My mom taught me because I wanted to read so desperately. And once I could read for myself, she stopped reading aloud to me, which I thought was very sad, especially looking back. But I do have memories of being read aloud to by my teachers in school. And one memory that just has stuck in my mind, it's actually not a great memory, but it's definitely memorable, is in 5th grade, our teacher read aloud to us Where the Red Fern Grows. And I think that should be considered child torture, because I sobbed at the end of that book. I mean, not just tears in the eyes, but ugly cried. And crying in front of your classmates is not usually a good thing for peer relationships. So that was not the best experience with read aloud, but that book is stuck in my mind because the teacher who read it read with such expression and passion that I will never forget it. There are a lot of reasons why we should read aloud to our kids that go far beyond simply that emotional bonding experience. One of the things is the academic advantage that it gives our kids. Studies show that if we read aloud to our kids on a regular basis, our kids have an academic advantage of 1 year over their peers who are not read aloud to. And that advantage comes regardless of the parent's education background, their income, or their cultural background. So that's a really easy way to give our kids that extra step up. And another study in the Journal of Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics found that kids who are read one short book a day from birth start school having heard nearly 300,000 more words than children who aren't read to. And that's just a huge advantage to our kids. So during today's program, you'll learn why you should read aloud to your children, even long after they can read for themselves. You will gain some helpful tips for reading aloud to children of all ages, and hopefully discover how to use a variety of activities during your read aloud time to engage other subjects like science and history. So we already talked about the academic benefits of reading aloud, but there are some other benefits that our kids get from it too. First of all, it helps develop empathy. Studies show that reading fiction or hearing fiction read aloud helps increase empathy in the reader or the listener. And that's because we will put ourselves in the feet of the characters of the book and imagine ourselves in their shoes. And that helps develop that empathy and compassion. It also encourages multiculturalism. I live in a very rural, non-diverse area. And so one of the ways that I encourage multiculturalism in my kids is that we read books from a variety of cultures, not only cultures here in our own country, but cultures all around the world. It also can help our kids develop problem-solving skills. As we read aloud and we talk about choices that characters make and how it worked out for them and what we might have done differently, it helps develop those problem-solving skills in our kids. Reading aloud also gives us an opportunity to present our kids with more challenging material than they might be ready to read on their own. Kids can usually understand and benefit from books that are at a much higher reading level than what they can read on their own. And we can also present them with challenging topics and subjects, and it gives a great opportunity for discussion. We already talked about how it improves vocabulary and the emotional bonding experience. It can also spur interest in personal reading. One of my kids was a reluctant reader. He read great, but he didn't enjoy it. He didn't pick it up for pleasure on his own until I discovered that if I read the first book in a series and not the rest, he would pick up the next book to find out what happened to the characters. And that happened with both the Percy Jackson and the Artemis Fowl series. So it's a great way to show our kids the variety of worlds that are out there in novels and in fiction, and maybe prompt them to pick up some books on their own. And then it also teaches those listening and attention skills that they need for school and just for life. So some tips for reading aloud. First of all, when it comes to choosing your books, you want to pick age-appropriate and interest-based books. We can pick books that are challenging and a little bit beyond their reading level, but make sure they are things that they would actually be interested in. We want this to be a great experience for them. Take turns choosing. Bring your kids here to the library and let everybody check out books and take turns choosing which ones are read. Read both fiction and nonfiction. There are so many great science and history board books, picture books, chapter books that are just as engaging as storybooks. And so don't stick just to stories. And then do the voices. I know that can be it can feel silly when we're reading aloud to our kids, but at least until they're teenagers, they're going to be a pretty uncritical audience. So we need to take advantage of that and make it just completely enjoyable time. And then give them something to keep their hands busy. If you have one of those kiddos who just simply cannot sit still for read aloud time, it doesn't mean they're not paying attention. I had one of my kids who was a very kinesthetic learner, meaning he has to be doing things, touching things in order to learn. And he could not sit still for read aloud time. And I finally realized that if I asked him to sit still, he was using every ounce of his mental energy to keep himself still and had nothing left for enjoying the book. So once I started letting him build with his Legos or Bionicles or draw or color, he was able to enjoy read aloud time as well. So don't assume that if they're fidgety that they're not interested. Just give them something to keep their hands busy. And as our kids get older, we don't need to stop reading aloud to them. One of my favorite quotes is the one I had on the very first slide, and it's from author Neil Gaiman. And he says, "We have an obligation to read aloud to our children, to read them things they enjoy, to read them stories we are already tired of, to do the voices, to make it interesting, and not to stop reading to them just because they learn to read to themselves." And I strongly agree with that. And so as your kids get older, you can bring in more challenging material, novels, short stories, poetry. Read aloud newspaper and magazine articles about current events that will prompt discussion with what's going on in the world. Be willing to give up on a book. I know we all have those favorite books we can't wait to read out loud to our kids. For me, that was Little Women, but it was clear by page 40, my kids were bored out of their minds. Probably didn't help that I had 3 boys and 1 girl, and the boys were like, yeah, no. So even though it was my favorite, I had to give up on that because we want this to be an enjoyable time for them. And then as they get older, encourage them to choose the text to read aloud and also lead the discussion. Come up with the discussion questions. That helps build those leadership and critical thinking skills in our kids. And make it a family activity. If you can get your partner to join in once or twice a week, grandma and grandpa, if they're visiting, make it part of your family culture. There are a lot of ways that we can take read aloud and extend it beyond simply the act of reading. Studies show that active learning, where we actually engage in activities with what we're learning, increases our retention and long-term memory. And so there's so many ways that you can add in different parts of the curriculum to your read aloud time. Really simple ways, like with art, let them color or draw as you're reading. One of the ideas I saw online that I thought was great was a teacher would read a picture book and not show the pictures to the students, and then ask the students to draw what they imagined. And then all the students were able to compare their imaginations and then also look at what the illustrator actually came up with. For science, go on a nature walk and then go to the library and look up books on things that you saw in your walk, on the wildlife, the plants, feathers, eggs, birds' nests. History, read a book about a certain era in history and then go to a museum or visit a museum website and look at exhibits on art and architecture and clothing of the time period. Film, one of the great things that I experienced with my kids was that a lot of the books we read as they were growing up have since been turned into movies. Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Percy Jackson. And so we were able to then see the movies as a family and have these great discussions that usually involved, I can't believe they did that to my favorite book, but sometimes that's just exactly how I imagined it. So that's a great way to extend it too. Writing, have them, after you've read the story, have them try to boil the story down into a newspaper headline or a haiku. And then drama, have them imagine and script out an alternative ending to a story and then act it out. And then when you don't have time for these more involved activities, there's just the real simple question and answers that we can do to just check on that reading comprehension and literacy skills. So now I would like to give you guys a chance to come up with some activities. So we're going to break up into small groups. You'll have about 4 to 5 minutes. And what I want you to do is elect someone to share your ideas via chat when we get back to the main group. And then just talk about some activities that maybe I haven't mentioned or new slants on activities that I already did mention. And once I put you in your groups, you'll see an invitation to join. Go ahead and click that. And then when you have about a minute left, you will see a 60-second countdown letting you know that the breakout groups are going to end. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay, you should be able to join in the groups now. everyone back then? Okay, is everybody back? Okay, great, thank you. I'm sorry it took a little bit longer. We had a hiccup technically on this end with the recording, but can you go ahead and share with me some of the activities that you came up with? Play a different character in a book, have them write new lyrics to a song they already know. That's great. Adding a new chapter or ending, setting up Pinterest for ideas to accompany a book. Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great way to also put in, get in those technology skills. Anything else from the other group? Adding in puppetry, yes, props like dolls or stuffed animals. Tying in a craft project would make the stories more engaging and memorable. Absolutely. Another thing that I remember doing with my kids is that when we were reading a book set in a historical era, is we would cook a recipe from that era and then eat it as a snack while we were doing read aloud time. So yeah, those are all really great ideas. Thank you so much. So just to recap, what did we learn today? We learned why you should read aloud to your children even after they can read on their own. We discussed some tips for reading aloud to children of all ages. And then we talked about ways to use activities to enhance our read aloud time. And then before I go, I wanted to give you, oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong direction here, some resources for you to take home with you that should help you with your read aloud time at home. The first one here on sadlier.com has 23 printable read aloud lessons, and they're just the real simple question and answer kind. They tell you what book to check out here at the library, and then you can print out questions to go with them. The next one on Reading Rockets has 103 things to do during or after reading, and they range the spectrum from very simple to very elaborate ideas. And then I've given you a couple of read aloud lists for science and history books. And then when your kids are getting older and you're ready to try some poetry, there's a fantastic project on the Library of Congress website called Poetry 180 with Billy Collins. And he started this project to make sure that poetry was still being read in junior highs and high schools. And so he puts up a new poem for the 180 academic days of the school year. And on the website, you can sign up to have poems emailed to you every day. There's a page on tips on how to read poetry aloud. And then there's 2 books that have come out of the project, Poetry 180 and 180 More. And the poems are specifically selected with junior high and high school students in mind. So they're short, great discussion starters, just fantastic resource. And then there's a resource book called the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. It's been around since my kids were little, so I think it's in its like 6th edition now. But it has even more information on how to read aloud, why we should read aloud, and then book lists. And then, of course, you have the librarians here at the library. I'm more than willing to answer questions, help you find some books, help you think of some activities to go with them. So feel free to stop by and ask any of us questions or send me an email here. My email address is at the top of the screen. Thank you very much. Okay, and I'll go ahead and give you back your hosting, Nancy.
Okay, thank you very much, Carrie. That was a great presentation. I loved the suggestions that people had for making stories more engaging and memorable.
Thank you.
That was great. Okay. So it is the halfway point. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 9-minute break, and we will start up again at 11:20. And I am going to go and pause the recording. Maybe.
All right, so let me share my, I can get to my bar. How do I move this top bar so I don't see it because my stuff's underneath?
You mean your Zoom bar?
Yeah, the
You can just
mute.
click on it and drag it.
Oh, I see. Perfect. Okay. So let's start our slideshow. All right. Okay, so think back to when you were in college, and when I was in college, we didn't have databases, but I suspect for many of you, that's how you used, that's the tools you use to do research, and they can be confusing and they can be difficult to use. Now, I happen to be, my dream job would be to be a theological librarian. ATLAS stands for the American Theological Library Association, and their big cash cow is they have developed the religion database, which accesses all kinds of journals and resources from every religion on the planet. They do have a primary focus on Christianity, but they also have all these other tools and all these other resources. Where's mine? So here's my audience and who I would be. So I would be a reference and instruction librarian, and my audience would be freshmen, undergraduate students, although one of the tools I'm going to show you, I know many graduate students aren't aware of. I wasn't aware of it actually until I took a class on online searching a couple semesters ago. And the context would be an IEL session for a research skills course. And some colleges have this sort of thing, and so this would be the context. So to start with freshmen, I might start some with a cartoon like this. And, it's designed to kind of get you a sense of, finding out about religions, particularly even if you are religious, finding out about your own religion is difficult. If you're not religious, it's challenging to find material about a particular, particularly academic source of any type. Okay, so what will you learn today? By the end of the lesson, you will be able to perform effective searches using this database. You will learn how to use limiters to narrow your searches and demonstrate your newly improved search skills. Let me back that up. So now what I'd like you to do is, where'd my share bar go? Okay. I need to do it. If you have if you want to go up and exit the full screen and open the browser for yourself, you can follow along, or you can just watch my screen and see what I'm doing. So the first step I would take students is I would take them, okay, let's start at the library site and find where the articles and databases are. So on the San Jose site, we have the articles and database link, and we click on that, and hopefully, okay, here we are. And we have all these databases. Now for this particular database, it's in the A's, and so you can either go to A, or in either case, I always usually do a Control F and search for ATLA, and it takes me directly there. Now, if we click here, for some of you, for me, for example, I have to log in. So let me log in.
Hey, Peter, we can only see the slide.
Oh, so let me get rid of, sorry, let me share again, new share. And there we are. Sorry about that. So we're here. So we would, can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So you would start at the website, go to the databases, use Control F, and then go to the advanced search. It goes straight to the advanced search. Now, what most of us do, I think, is just type some sort of phrase or some sort of word into the search box and hit search. So for example, what I'm going to do right now is use a phrase, say sacrifice of Isaac. So this refers to the story in Genesis where Abraham sacrifices, or is supposed to sacrifice, his son Isaac to God. Turns out not to have to do that. But if we search, a couple things happen. One, not every article may be about this. There may be, this one happens to be, but there may be other articles. Maybe some of these do. This one may be narrow enough where it happens, but sometimes you'll have a topic. I mean, for example, if you just put Isaac in, you get 5,000. So this may not be, this is really, I think if you're trying to find out articles about what your topic is about, the main search box is not really where you want to go. So what I'd like to show you is the thesaurus. Now what the thesaurus is, if you click here, is you can type in here the subject that you're searching, and then it will give you the words that you really want to use to search properly. Now, in terms if you're unfamiliar with the topic itself, I usually use relevancy ranked, so that the top articles have most to do with, or the top listings have most to do with your topic. So I'm going to type in here sacrifice of Isaac. Hit browse. And notice, sacrifice of Isaac, use Akeda. I didn't know this till recently, but Akeda is a Hebrew term which means binding, or in this case, binding of Isaac to be sacrificed. I come over here, I click on the box. Now, there is a possibility of adding more than one term, and so it does give you Boolean operators for that, but we're only using one term. So we're going to add this to the box, and notice it comes right up here. That's the subject that we're going to be searching for now. Instead of typing in sacrifice of Isaac, it already populates the search box with that term. Now we can search, and every article in this list, problem is there's 544 of them. There's no way we can get through all of those. So, like I frequently have told students in the past, if you're looking for a needle in a haystack, find a smaller haystack so that you can have an opportunity actually to find it. Now, the limiters we're going to practice today, there are all kinds of limiters as you scroll down. The limiters we're going to practice today are full text. So this tells you that all these are the text of the article is available to you. We're also going to use scholarly peer-reviewed journals, so you know that these are academic articles. And then what's also useful is to come down to language. And depending what your topic is, many of the languages, like I don't really want to read this article in German, but maybe you do. So that's one opportunity. But let's put it on English for right now. And now as it updates, now 166 is still a lot. And so I may want to use more limiters to narrow that down. Now I'm going to give you an activity. So I want to back up and show you the steps that I took to get here. Let me erase this. Get rid of this and get rid of this. So first, go to the library page, articles and databases, find ATLA, perhaps Control F, ATLA, and there it is. You may have to log in. In this case, I think I'm already logged in. So what I did was sacrifice of Isaac. That we know that didn't work, so we go to thesaurus, relevancy ranked, sacrifice of Isaac. It gives us the term to use. Click that box, add, search. Any questions so far? Okay, so we need to limit this, and the limiters I'm going to want you to use are full text, scholarly peer-reviewed journals, and change the language to just English. Now, let me start again, and then I'll give you the particular word that you're going to be searching with. And in the chat box, for each time you come up with a set of results, try to note in the chat box the number of results you get at each stage. So here, we got 166 without doing any sort of limiters at all, except these. So once we put the limiters in, well, these are the limiters. You know, once you didn't, you know, you don't have the, you know, we didn't have the limiters. We had 544. So that's with the first search that we did with the term that we chose, and then the thesaurus. Once you put the limiters in, I didn't do the scholarly peer-reviewed, and we have 166. So let me go back, walk through it again. So your task, the search you're going to look for is Hebrew Bibles. So on your own search box on ATLA, you would type Hebrew Bible and go through the same steps. You know, if you search here, you're going to get all kinds of different results. Go straight to the thesaurus. And relevancy rank, and then type in here Hebrew Bible, and it'll tell you what to use instead. Just click the box and add. So I'll give you a few minutes to do this, and in the chat box, you can tell me how many results you get at any given time. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. Hebrew Bible is the search term. Okay, so yes, so 35,000 initially, that's quite a few. Now go just to try English only. Okay, so if you're looking for Bible Old Testament, where is it? Bible Old Testament by itself. Oh, I can just click here. Okay, so Bible Old Testament, add, search. So we go down to full text. I have 104. Try when you go back, try to when you go back to the thesaurus area, you'll notice when I typed in Hebrew Bible by itself, and also make sure you do relevancy ranked Hebrew Bible. This is probably why you got so many other results, because the term begin with and that sort of thing. It says, okay, instead of Hebrew Bible, use Bible Old Testament. Click on that and add. Search. And our initial set of results is 105. Okay, so when you go to let's see, we go to the thesaurus again. I get 105 now. Okay, so remember, Hebrew Bible. There's all kinds of different, listings for Hebrew Bible. That's one of the things you have to pay attention to. Is there's all these other kinds of listings in terms of subheadings of Bible Old Testament. So if we could click just on Bible Old Testament, then we get what we need. Search. Full text. Takes it down to 34. Scholarly peer reviewed. Takes it down to 25. And then English takes it down to 20, which is a reasonable number of sources to go through. So Kristen, if you go back to the thesaurus, what have you put into the search box here? So go to this thesaurus, and you get this screen right here. The screen where it says Browsing Atlas Subject Thesaurus. Now type in Hebrew Bible. Okay, hit Browse. Then come down here where it says Bible Old Testament and click on that. Then here, add that. Comes up here. Search. And then we should get 105. Oh, is that what it is? I didn't know that there was an option to not not activating it. Yeah, you have to check that box, check that button. I suspect you would get a lot more results if it's just Bible, New Testament in terms of contains or has that sort of a longer search string. Okay, so going back to me, get out of, where am I? Going back to, share. So what we've done so far, right? Find a smaller haystack. Use the thesaurus for the best term for subject search. These are 3 limiters that you can use. There are others as well. If you have questions, you can go to the website, ask a librarian. You can stop by the reference desk. You can go to our social media and ask librarians, or you can email me at my email address. Any questions about what we've done? So you've been promoted. You are now a powerful research penguin, which is important. Okay, so that's my presentation.
Thank you very much, Peter. I like the penguin. And I thought you had some really good points. I liked the demonstration. I think live demonstrations are always good when you can do that in a presentation. So next we have Kristen.
Okay. I can share my screen. Did you make me host or?
Hang on one second.
Okay.
Okay, you don't need to be host to share your screen, but
Okay.
you should be able to do that now.
Okay. Everybody see that now?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks good.
Okay. Okay. Welcome. Everybody can see that screen now. Perfect. My name is Kristen Holtzauer. I am the library director at the Pontiac Public Library in Pontiac, Illinois. Today's lesson is going to be about accessing the online catalog at the Pontiac Public Library. Today's lesson is provided for teachers and support staff in our local Pontiac School District 429. The lesson is provided as part of our partnership with the teachers and the students as part of an intergovernmental agreement for library card access and library services. By the end of today's session, you will be able to locate the online catalog using the Pontiac Public Library's website, log in using a library card ID and password, search for items in the collection at the Pontiac Public Library and other RSA libraries, place a hold for an item on a library account, and manage the online library account on RSA's website. Okay, to start, I'd like each of you to use your annotation tools and tell me what type of books you'd like to find within the online catalog today. This could be as simple as just a basic genre, or if you have a favorite author or title that you like, go ahead and use those annotation tools now and let me know what you'd like to find today. Okay, excellent. I'm seeing some great input. Looks like there's graphic novels and some large print, maybe some true crime or history. Those are all great items. Thank you for adding those. Here are those now. The mission of the Pontiac Public Library is to provide you the most complete and diverse collection of materials. Each year, we subscribe to Resource Sharing Alliance, or RSA, as part of our continued commitment to our valued patrons. With access to the collections of over 200 libraries across the state of Illinois, we can provide you access to a practically limitless selection of materials to choose from. Fortunately, this means that the items that you have written there that you would like to find within our online catalog are likely available for you today. Resource Sharing Alliance can be accessed via the Pontiac Public Library website at www.pontiacpubliclibrary.org. I will go ahead and paste the link into the chat window. You can hyperlink, or excuse me, click on the hyperlink on your screen if you'd like to follow along. Okay, from the Pontiac Public Library website, you'll scroll down. Along the left-hand side is our main menu, and you would select Online Catalog from that main menu to go to the RSA Alliance webpage. For fast and easy access, you can bookmark this online catalog. You would just use this little star function in the upper right-hand corner to bookmark this for your next visit. In order for you to place items on hold and have access to your personal library account, you will need to first log in on the Resource Sharing Alliance homepage. Your username is the 10 digits appearing below the barcode on the back of your library card, and it includes the letter D. Your PIN is the last 4 digits of the username. Don't worry if you don't have a library card today. For today's lessons, I will be providing you some practice login information later in our lesson. In the upper right-hand corner of the RSA homepage, up here at the top, you would select Login and enter the information from the back of your library card. You'll know that you are logged in when your name appears at the top instead of the word login. And for today's lesson, I'm going to be using one of the sample logins. So my name will appear as PPL General 2, and I will go ahead and log in now. And you'll see that it changes to PPL General 2. RSA allows you to search the online catalog using many filter options. These filters narrow your search so you can locate items easier and faster. This first filter here on the left-hand side, where it says Pontiac Public Library, is your home library, and it will automatically appear, but you can use the drop-down menu to change your selection to any of the options listed below. So you can search all RSA libraries, or you can limit it to different types or genres of book items within our collection. The second filter asks you to select how you would like to initiate your search. If you are searching for a specific author, you would select author from this list in the drop-down menu and then type the author's name in the search box here to the right. For instance, I could select the home library, Pontiac Public Library, then author, and type in James Patterson. And then select search. This will show me all of the items held in the Pontiac Public Library's collection for which James Patterson is the author. We can further narrow our search by using the additional filters on the left-hand side of the screen. For instance, let's say I was looking for an audiobook written by James Patterson. I could select audiobook under format, and then I would select include to tell the system to just include audiobooks. This takes our results from 767 down to 28, and it'll load here. Yeah, so there's 28 results. You can search the items as you scroll through the list. You'll see the title, a brief summary, and the format, and it should say available down at the bottom for one copy, if it is available to place on hold. Once I have found the item that I'd like to place on hold, I can come over here to the right-hand side where it says place hold, and I can click place hold. And then I will verify that the pickup library is my home library. It'll say Pontiac PL. I can place hold and then click OK. Once I have placed an item on hold, I would be notified that the item is available for pickup by email or phone. And for items selected from the home library collection, the items are usually available the next day. For items that would come from another library within the RSA consortium, it would take 3 to 4 business days. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, let's break for a couple of questions. What does RSA stand for? You can go ahead and use the chat box. What does RSA stand for? This is the consortium that the library uses. Go ahead and use your chat box and let me know if you remember what RSA stands for. Okay, RSA stands for Resource Sharing Alliance. It is the consortium that the Pontiac Public Library subscribes to. And it does allow us to bring you a broader collection of materials to choose from. Okay, next question. Where can I find my login information for RSA's website? If you could just answer the question in your chat box again, that would be great. Yes, Carrie, very good. On the library card under the barcode, yes, the login information is on the back of your library card. It does include the letter D and the last 4 digits of your number on the back of your card is your PIN. Okay, last question. How would I be notified that an item is available for me to pick up at the library? When I place a book on hold, how would I be notified? Oh, yes, by email or by phone. The Pontiac Public Library allows both options for notification, and you would be either emailed or given a call to let you know that the item is available for pickup in the library. Okay, I'd like to do a little fun activity now where I'm going to ask each of you to put on your detective hats. You get to be Sherlock Holmes today. And you will be on a mission to find a missing book. The question for you is, can you find it? For this activity, each of you will be working to find a book within the online catalog that matches the clues that have been provided to your detective agency. Once you have located a book that matches your clues, you will also then search for a book of your interest. It may be one of the items that you listed at the very beginning of our activity or our lesson today. At the end of the activity, you should have 2 books on hold within the online catalog. And when you are finished, you can just type finished into the chat box, or to keep in line with our theme today, you could also type in it's elementary, Watson. Nancy, Ariel, Jeff, and Carrie, you are part of Detective Agency 1, and you will be looking for the missing book that matches these clues. Nonfiction, juvenile, Abraham Lincoln book, and it will come from the Pontiac Public Library collection. Peter, Melina, Grace, and Anne, you are part of Detective Agency 2, and your clues are fiction, adult, James Patterson, audiobook, and from a different RSA library. The link on your screen is hyperlinked. It will take you directly to the RSA website. I will go ahead and type that into the chat box for you, along with the login information for each detective agency. Go ahead and begin your searches now. And again, when you're finished, just come back to the chat box and type in finished or it's elementary, Watson. And I'll know that you are done. If you have any questions as you do this, please type that into the chat box and I'll be happy to address those as you search. Has everyone been able to log in? Yep, I can go back a slide, of course. There you go. Does that help? Detective Agency 1, your clues are nonfiction, juvenile, Abraham Lincoln, book, and an item from the Pontiac Public Library collection. And then Detective Agency 2, your clues are fiction, adult, James Patterson, audiobook, and from a different RSA library. Yes, you will go ahead and place the book on hold. So you just click the place hold on the right-hand side. And again, it'll pop up with a pop-up box there. You just make sure that it says Pontiac PL as the home library pickup location, and then press OK. You should have 2 books on hold when you are done. One that matches your detective agency clues, and then one that is of your own interest. Yes, it's just one. It's not one specific book on Abraham Lincoln. It's just one that matches those clues. Yes. Needs to be nonfiction, juvenile, Abraham Lincoln, and a book format from the collection. Okay, we'll give it a couple of more minutes. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to address those for you. Okay, it looks like everyone's starting to finish up on the activity here. Does anybody have any questions about logging in to the RSA website and searching for filter options? Or searching using the filtering options? Okay, all right, let's see how great your detective skills are. We'll go to the client RSA website. You can manage your account on the online RSA homepage by selecting My Account up at the top of the screen. If I do this, I can view each of the holds that you have placed onto the accounts today. I will look at Detective Agency's account first, so let me log into that. So you log in and then you would check My Account. And the My Account functions allow you to look at your holds, your personal information, and your checkout. So we'll go to hold. And I can see that we have Abraham Lincoln books, nice World War I book here. Great job, Detective Agency 1. You found some good items that match those clues. Okay, let's look at Detective Agency 2. I will log out again and go back in. Oh, Carrie, you said you put a digital 1 on hold too? Here, let me look at that. Just for the personal title? Okay. Did you select hold for that? Did you, Carrie? Because it should show here. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. I didn't have it down. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, digital hold. Yes, thank you. Okay, so excellent. You found a different format. That's perfect. Okay, we'll log into Detective Agency 2's. Okay, and we go to My Account. And then holds again. There's a digital hold for Wizard's First Rule. And then the library holds. Found some James Patterson audiobooks. Perfect. Great job, Detective Agency 2. You also found items that matched your clues. That's excellent work. This is a great activity that you can do as teachers with your students in the classroom as you begin to teach them about the RSA and online catalog. So you can pick authors and titles and provide clues for them to search as well, and allow them to be detectives in their search of the online catalog. Okay, are there any questions about placing items on hold or managing your account via the online website? You can go ahead and type those into the chat box if you have any. Okay, let's recap. In today's lesson, you have learned how to locate the online catalog using the Pontiac Public Library's website, which is www.pontiacpubliclibrary.org. You've logged in using a library card ID and password. Again, your login would be on the back of your library card, and your PIN is the last 4 digits. You've searched items in the collection at the Pontiac Public Library and with other RSA libraries. And you've placed holds for items on your library account and managed those holds under Manage My Account on the RSA website. I appreciate all of you being here today for the lesson. A link to a recording from today's lesson will be available on our library website for future reference. for you to use within your classroom. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My email is director@pontiacpubliclibrary.org, and I can be reached by phone at 815-844-7229. I will be emailing each of you a survey to your teacher accounts requesting feedback from today's lesson. That feedback helps us provide you future lessons to assist you within the classroom. So we appreciate it very much that you complete that and send it back within a couple of days. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to address those. Go ahead and put those in your chat. Otherwise, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Kristen. I really enjoyed the detective agency activity and actually getting in and trying that out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and if you could give me hosting permissions back, please.
Okay, Nancy, I'm trying to do that, but it's not. I'm in participants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And
I see it. I see it.
okay. Thank you.
I couldn't find that button at first. I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem. And Melina is next.
Yep. Alrighty. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen.
Okay.
And screen. Alrighty. Can everybody see my slideshow here?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. All right, give me 1 second here. I'm going to make sure I can see the chat. Oop. Okay, everyone, last one. I know it's hard. At the end of the day, we're all kind of tired, so I'll try to be as energetic as I possibly can for everyone. So today I will be teaching first-year students about the difference between scholarly and popular sources. So I'm Melina, and this is me right here. And in this scenario, I am a library instructor at a four-year university, again teaching first-year students. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the components of scholarly and popular sources, locate icons in a library database, and identify various parts of scholarly articles. Okay, so I have a quick warm-up exercise for everyone. This is to see where everyone is at with distinguishing scholarly and popular articles right off the bat. So with the stamp tool, stamp a red X next to the image that you think is a popular source, and stamp a green check mark next to the image that you think is a scholarly source. Perfect. Looks like everyone is in agreement. So yes, if you chose the image on the right as your scholarly source with a green check mark, you would be correct. That is referenced in User Services Quarterly. So now that we've done some guesswork, let's dive into exactly how we can tell a scholarly source from a popular source. Okay, so here are some examples of popular sources. If you've ever gone to the magazine section of a bookstore, you've probably picked up a popular source. The most common format is a magazine article, as you can, that would be in one of these here. So popular sources are written for the general public and they're easy to read. They don't contain any original research, meaning that no studies or experiments have been conducted to find an answer to a question. There's also usually no citations in popular sources, so there's no designated space for you to see where the author got the information. And where am I in? Some other characteristics is their glossy paper. They're also usually going to be in full color, as you can see here. And they'll have pictures that grab your attention. Another characteristic of popular sources is ads, like this gift guide here, that try to get you to buy something. Any questions so far? Nope, we're good. Okay. So moving on, here's some examples of scholarly sources. So the examples I have here are the covers of printed academic journals that contain many articles inside. So scholarly articles contain original research written by experts that are published in academic journals. They've also been peer-reviewed, meaning that the articles have been looked over for mistakes before they're published. And we'll talk about the peer review process more in a moment. Now, scholarly sources will contain long lists of citations or references, and these let the reader know exactly where the author got the information. If they do contain pictures, scholarly sources will have graphs and charts that show data, like these here. Some other characteristics of scholarly sources is that they're written for people needing information about a very specific topic. They also will not contain any ads. So now we're going to talk about the peer review process in a little bit more detail. And to do this, I am going to attempt to draw on my little blackboard screen here. So let me get my tool out real quick. There we are. Okay, so in the peer review process, I'm going to draw first a researcher who has just written a paper. So here's my researcher dude. And here's his paper. He's really happy about it. And to get this paper into the published into the academic journal he wants, he'll have to submit it to a committee of experts who will look it over for mistakes. So here's my committee. And let's see here, I'm going to make 2 of them women. Fight the power. Here we go. Okay, so here's his paper. He's going to submit it to these committee members here. It's my arrow. And the committee will either approve the paper for publication into the journal or reject it based on insufficient information. Okay? So now that we've kind of gone over the process, why do you guys think the peer review process is important? So knowing a little bit about it, why is it important? You can go ahead and annotate on the board here or write in the chat box. Yeah, so we have one person saying that to check that the research methods are ethical. That's a good one. And scientific. Yeah, Kristen, ensures that the content is credible and follows standards. Yeah, it's definitely comes down to credibility for sure. A way to fact check everything before it's published, right? Perfect. Give us one more moment here. So yeah, these answers are great. So the peer review process checks the accuracy and the validity of the information presented. It also evaluates the article's suitability for the publication. And I do like this person's comment on ethics. That's also a key part of the peer review process as well. Alrighty, so moving on. So your professors will want you to find scholarly sources for your research most of the time. So now that we've talked about the differences between scholarly and popular sources, we're going to find a scholarly article in a database webpage. You can follow along if you'd like by going to our library website. And I'm just gonna go on over here really quick. Okay, so can everybody see this okay? If even one person can just say it's all good. Yes, we're good. Okay, good. Okay, so from the library's homepage, I'm going to go to Articles and Databases right here. And then from the A to Z list that will come up in a moment, I'm going to select Academic Search Complete. This is a database that you'll likely use when you're gathering information for your research papers as an undergraduate. And for this example, imagine that you are interested in early childhood education. So my search term here is going to be early literacy. And I'm going to hit enter. My connection's a little slow. I apologize. I'm in a back room of the library. All right, so as you can see, a bunch of results will pop up. Now, as I said before, your professor will likely ask you to cite scholarly sources in your research papers. So let's see how we can limit our search to make sure that we are only looking at scholarly articles. So to limit the search, I'm going to click the checkbox over here, just to the left, that says scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So this button is an indication that what will come up will be peer-reviewed, as it says in the parentheses. Now, for the sake of time, I'm also going to click on full text to make sure we're only seeing full text options in this database. All right, so now in this database, there's an icon that says academic journal. just below the title here. This icon is a signal that the article we're looking at right here exists in a peer-reviewed academic journal, which is what we want. Alrighty. Are there any questions so far? Perfect. So now that we've performed our search, I'm going to choose an article that demonstrates the various parts of scholarly articles. And I'm also going to give you guys some tips for reading scholarly articles. So I've already found one that I like ahead of time. So I'm just going to go to page 2 where it's located. And it is called "Do Early Learning and Literacy Support at Home Predict Preschoolers' Narrative Skills?" It's kind of a mouthful. I'm just going to scroll down to find it real quick. Here we are. I'm going to click on the full text so we can all see it. So for many of you, you may not have come across intense scholarly articles until now, and they can be a little challenging to read at first. So let's briefly go over the anatomy of a scholarly article, once it pulls up, of course. If it takes too long, I have a backup method. I think I'll just go to that. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up the PDF for time's sake. So here's my article. And like I said, I'm just going to go over some of the parts of the article. So we have first here an abstract. An abstract is a summary of the article. So one good tip is the abstract is often displayed in the database before you download a full text edition of the article. So you can read the abstract first in order to see if the article is what you're looking for your research. So if we scroll down a bit, we can also see an introduction. Now note how most of the time the introduction will not be labeled, but rest assured the first few paragraphs are indeed the introduction. And this will include background information about what will be addressed in the article. So moving right along, here we have the method section. So the method describes how the research was conducted, be it a survey, a questionnaire, an interview. So I like to read the first couple of sentences of the method section to get a sense of how many participants were included and what the method was used to conduct the study. Other than that, you're going to want to skim this section to prevent you from getting bogged down by the complex language in this section. And if we scroll down even further, we will see our results section. Now this section is similar to the method section. It explains the results of the research in detail. So note the formulas and equations that are on here. It's going to be very detailed and specific. So I would also suggest to skim this section, but definitely pay attention to any trends that stem from the graphs and charts in this section, because you can get a sense of the outcome of the research by the graphs and charts. Now we have the discussion section. This is going to be the why it matters section. It's a discussion of what the research that has been conducted can tell us. So definitely read this section and take notes. This is the heart of the article, where you will find the most relevant information. And if we continue downward, this particular article does not label the conclusion. Most will. So a conclusion sums up the paper. Now, you can actually start tackling an article by reading the conclusion section first. This is called the read backwards method. So you can do this because the conclusion is usually a summary of the article. So once you read the conclusion, you can kind of work your way backwards and kind of get a sense of what the article is about. And of course, we have our references section with citations stating where exactly where the author got the information. Okay, so any questions? All right, so now that we've talked about scholarly and popular sources, let's test your knowledge with a couple of quick exercises. Okay, so for our first recap exercise, let's say that you're a film student researching the late great American filmmaker John Singleton. Do you think this article is scholarly or popular? Using the stamp tool again, stamp a red X if you think the article is popular, and a green check mark if you think it's scholarly. Perfect. You guys are doing really great. So yeah, most everyone said that this is a popular article, and you'd be correct. We can tell this mostly by this attention-grabbing picture right here of John Singleton doing kind of a victory lap, as it were. We can also see an ad here. I don't know if you guys caught on to that. Now, since this is an internet source, you're never going to want to click on an ad here, but it is indeed trying to get you to buy something. All right. So moving on. Nope, let me clear this. Okay, so let's say that you are researching information literacy. Do you think this is a scholarly or popular article? Again, indicate with a red X if it's popular or a green check if it's scholarly. Yeah, so it looks like everybody's in agreement. This is a scholarly article. And we can tell this by the clearly defined sections. We have an abstract right off the bat here. It also mentions methodology. And also note that there's clear information about where the authors are conducting their research. In this case, Utah State University. That will also be very common with scholarly articles. All righty. Good job, everyone. So now we're going to recap. So we talked about how popular sources are written for a general public. They have graphics that grab your attention and they're easy to read. Scholarly sources, on the other hand, have multiple identifiable parts, no ads whatsoever, and are research-based. Scholarly sources are also peer-reviewed, and the peer review process relates to the credibility of an article, and it tells us that the work has been accepted into the field as worthwhile knowledge. Remember to look for icons and buttons in databases that help you identify scholarly sources when you're searching. Focus on the abstract, introduction, discussion, and conclusion sections when reading. Worry about complex methodology sections when you're all PhD students. For now, just focus on what the article is about. So here's my contact information if you have any questions. Now, when you're at the library studying, feel free to stop by the reference desk and ask a librarian if you're unsure about a source, citations, or finding scholarly sources. Librarians are here to help with all of your research needs. Talk about ads, right? Alrighty. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Melina. That was a great job and some really important stuff. I really like that you pointed out the ads as one way of being able to tell whether or not something is a scholarly source, because I think that's a really good, easy way to let students know that. And because I
Thank you.
think I found that students do have a lot of questions when the professor says, "Okay, you need to have two scholarly sources." Well, they don't always know what that means, so I think that's really good. So,
Mhm.
thank you, everyone, for both presenters and participants. I'm going to give everybody a hand. Our presenters all did a great job and everybody participated, so I think this was very successful. So what happens next, just as a reminder, you will need to turn in your reflection for the presenters within the next 2 days so that it is fresh in your memory. And then the peer feedback, which is going to be 2 things that you thought each presenter did well and 1 thing that you think that they could improve on. That will need to be in within the next 2 or 3 days as well. The recording will be available. There is an announcement post, and I will add the link to this recording to that, and you will have that available to you. Just to let you know, for the presenters, you will be able to use this for your e-port as evidence, but you should make sure that you'll have to use the whole recording. Unfortunately, there's no way to edit out a chunk of it. So you would need to get the whole recording, and then there's a rolling transcript on the side, and that you can use that to find the timestamp for your portion of it. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, then in that case, I'm going to stop the recording now.